1964. A martial arts exhibition in Long Beach, California. The audience, mostly American karate practitioners, tournament competitors, martial arts school owners, has gathered expecting the usual demonstrations. Impressive athleticism, traditional forms, the choreographed beauty of established systems. What they see instead stops the room. A 23-year-old Chinese-American man steps onto the demonstration floor and performs what he calls the one-inch punch. His fist is placed almost touching the chest of a volunteer standing in front of him, with barely an inch of space to generate any force whatsoever. And yet, when he releases the punch from that position, with no wind-up, no dramatic telegraphing of power, the man standing before him is hurled backward, landing in a chair that assistants have placed several feet behind him, specifically to catch his fall. The crowd does not quite know what it has just witnessed. A party trick? Physics manipulation? Genuine martial capability, so refined, it has shed every unnecessary movement in the way a sculptor sheds everything that is not the statue? Then Bruce Lee performs the two-finger push-up, not on both hands, on two fingers of one hand, his thumb and index finger, an act of absolute physical control that no one in the room has ever attempted, let alone executed with the casual confidence Lee displays. By the end of the demonstration, the Hollywood producer Jay Sebring is in the audience and cannot stop watching. Within months, Lee has been offered the role of Kato, the sidekick of the Green Hornet, in a new American television series. His first real foothold in the entertainment industry he has been trying to crack for years. What the Long Beach audience witnessed that day was not merely physical performance. It was a statement of philosophy in physical form. The declaration that everything unnecessary, everything inherited without questioning, everything rigid and traditional and performed out of habit rather than honest testing, had been stripped away, leaving behind only what was true. What was direct. What actually worked. This was Jeet Kune Do before it had a name. This was Bruce Lee, a man who would spend his entire life, 32 years of it, a span so compressed it seems almost impossible for all it contained, refusing every box the world tried to put him in. Not Chinese enough for Chinese martial arts masters, who rejected him for his mixed heritage. Not American enough for Hollywood, which tried to keep him in supporting roles because he looked too Chinese. Refused by both worlds he inhabited, he did what he always did. He built a third world from scratch, one that eventually eclipsed both. Welcome to Blurr. Today, we begin the extraordinary journey of Bruce Lee, martial artist, actor, philosopher, and one of the most influential cultural icons of all time. In this first part of our biography series, we'll explore Bruce Lee's early years, his childhood in Hong Kong, his challenges, ambitions, and the experiences that shaped the legend he would become. If you enjoy immersive biographies and inspiring life stories, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss future releases. Now, sit back, relax. Let's begin the story of Bruce Lee. Chapter 1. The question. How does a mixed heritage boy born accidentally in San Francisco, raised in the crowded streets of Hong Kong, rejected by the Chinese martial arts establishment for his foreign blood, and rejected by Hollywood for his Chinese face, a man who died at 32 years old, having completed only 5 feature films, become one of the most globally recognizable human beings of the 20th century, the father of mixed martial arts, a genuine philosopher of physical and personal freedom, and the first Asian American to carry a Hollywood film as the lead? More specifically, how does a street-fighting teenager in Hong Kong, packed off to America with $100 in his pocket and a deportation threat from local police, transform himself in a little over a decade into a filmmaker, philosopher, actor, martial arts innovator, and cultural icon whose image appears on t-shirts in villages on every continent to this day? And what does the specific nature of Bruce Lee's refusal, his refusal to be defined by any single culture, tradition, institution, or inherited system, reveal about what it actually means to be free and what it costs. Chapter 2. Origins. San Francisco, California, November 27, 1940. The child who would become Bruce Lee was born, fittingly, between two worlds, on American soil, to Chinese parents. While the world outside the window was in the grip of a global war that was simultaneously consuming the country of his heritage and the country of his birth. His father, Lee Hoi-Shuang, was a renowned Cantonese opera singer and part-time actor, a man of genuine artistic stature within his world, who had brought his wife and family to San Francisco on a touring engagement connected to fundraising for China's war effort against Japan. His mother, Grace Ho, was a woman of genuinely mixed background, the daughter of a German Jewish father and a Chinese mother, raised Catholic, one of the most prominent families in Hong Kong's social world. Bruce inherited from this combination a face that was neither fully Chinese nor European, an ambiguity of appearance that would both define and ambiguity of appearance complicate his journey through every world he entered. The child was born in the hour of the dragon, in the year of the dragon, a conjunction regarded in Chinese astrology as a powerful, doubly forceful omen. His mother named him Li Junfan, meaning to return again, a prophecy she intended about his eventual return to San Francisco, which proved accurate in ways she could not have anticipated. A nurse at the hospital who found Li Junfan difficult to pronounce gave him the English name Bruce. His family never used it until he started school. Within 5 months of his birth, his parents returned to Hong Kong, then under Japanese occupation, and it was in those crowded, chaotic, culturally layered streets that the boy who would become Bruce Lee grew up. A sickly beginning, an explosive childhood. As an infant in Hong Kong, Bruce was fragile and frequently ill. The transition from the climate of San Francisco to the heat and humidity of southern China was difficult on him, and his mother became intensely protective of a child she had come close to losing. But this early frailty proved temporary. Within a few years, the child his mother had nicknamed Never Sit Still was in constant, explosive motion, running, jumping, practicing his father's opera movements, shadow boxing in every room, and spending every available hour on the streets of Kowloon with a restless, probing energy that no classroom could contain. By age 6, Bruce had already appeared in his first Hong Kong film, cast by his father in a small role, the beginning of what would become a childhood acting career spanning 20 films before he turned 18. He was billed as Li Xiulong, Little Dragon. His Xiulong older sister Agnes had given him the nickname because he had been born in the year of the dragon and in the dragon hour. The name would eventually become, in a different form, the title by which the entire world would know him. His father's struggles and the street world. In the early 1950s, Li Hoi-Chuan developed an opium addiction, a descent that, while it did not diminish his father's status in the opera world, marked an emotional withdrawal from the family that left young Bruce navigating more of his adolescence without steady paternal guidance. Bruce idolized his father, who combined artistic sensitivity with genuine showmanship, qualities the son would himself embody to an extraordinary degree. But the addiction created a distance that could not be entirely bridged. Bruce spent increasing amounts of time on Hong Kong's streets, attaching himself to neighborhood gangs and developing a reputation as a fighter. Hong Kong in this era had a vibrant, occasionally violent subculture of rooftop fights between rival kung fu schools, informal, often illegal bouts in which practitioners of different styles tested their techniques against each other. Bruce was drawn to these fights with a fascination that went beyond simple adolescent bravado. He was genuinely, analytically curious about which techniques actually worked against a resisting opponent, and which ones looked impressive in form's practice but dissolved under real physical pressure. He was also being bullied. His mixed European-Chinese heritage made him an outsider to some classmates, and the recurring fights were as much defensive response to social exclusion as expressions of natural aggression. Ip Man and Thay Wing Chun. Education. At 13 years old, bruised from enough street fights to recognize he needed systematic instruction, Bruce approached his mother with a request. He wanted to study Kung Fu. She agreed, and in 1953 he began training under Ip Man, the legendary Wing Chun Grandmaster, whose teaching would later be depicted in its own celebrated film franchise, and whose student roster would, in the annals of martial arts history, feature Bruce Lee as its most famous name. The acceptance was not straightforward. When Ip Man's existing students discovered that Bruce had German-Jewish ancestry through his mother, a significant contingent refused to train alongside him. The traditional Chinese martial arts world had long maintained strict rules against teaching techniques to non-Chinese students, and Bruce's mixed heritage placed him in an ambiguous, unwelcome position. Ip Man's solution was to assign a more senior student, Wang Shunlong, to give Bruce individual instruction separate from the main class, until attitudes gradually softened. The rejection by his own training community, even within the martial arts school he had specifically sought out for belonging, was a formative wound. It planted a seed of questioning about the logic and justice of inherited traditions that refused membership based on bloodline rather than merit, ability, or character. That seed would eventually become Jeet Kune Do, sent away at 18. By Tao, sent away at 18. 1958, Bruce's fighting reputation had crossed the line from local color to genuine legal risk. He had won the Hong Kong Interschool Boxing Championship and the colony's cha-cha dancing competition in the same year, an astonishing combination that they hinted at the physical range of gifts the 19-year-old possessed, but a rooftop fight in which he badly beat another boy, knocking out his tooth, escalated into a police matter. A detective appeared at the Lee family home and warned plainly that if Bruce was involved in one more fight, they would arrest him. Bruce's mother did not tell his father. Instead, she quietly suggested to Bruce that this was the moment to exercise his American citizenship, acquired automatically at birth, on San Francisco soil, and return to the United States. His college prospects in Hong Kong, never strong given his academic indifference, had narrowed further. His father agreed in April 1959. At 18 years old, Bruce Lee boarded a steamship for San Francisco with $100 in his pocket, and reportedly spent the 3-week voyage giving cha-cha dancing lessons to first-class passengers to earn extra money because he had booked third class and simply refused to stay in it. The boy who almost wasn't born, who grew up in a world that didn't entirely want him, was returning to the place of his birth with almost nothing. It was not, as his mother had hoped when she named him, return again, a triumphant homecoming. It was a deportation in everything but name. What he made of it was something no one could have predicted. Chapter 3. Early Struggles. America offers a waiter's job. San Francisco in 1959 was not waiting for Bruce Lee. He made his way to Seattle, where a family friend named Ruby Chow ran a Chinese restaurant and offered him room and board in exchange for work as a live-in waiter. He took the deal, washing dishes, waiting tables, doing whatever was required, while simultaneously teaching cha-cha dancing on the side to supplement his income, and training in the parking lot and back rooms whenever he could find the time. He enrolled at Edison Technical High School to complete his diploma, and then, in 1961, entered the University of Washington as a philosophy major. A choice that reveals something essential about the kind of mind Bruce Lee actually had beneath the physical spectacle. He was not merely a gifted athlete pursuing a convenient academic home. He was a genuinely curious, philosophical thinker who devoured Western and Eastern philosophy with equal appetite. Descartes and Krishnamurti, Lao Tzu and Bertrand Russell, Zen Buddhism, and Taoist philosophy. He kept journals, dense, handwritten notebooks full of quotations, personal reflections, and philosophical fragments that would eventually be published posthumously and reveal an inner intellectual life far more sophisticated than the martial arts movie star persona suggested to people who knew only the films. He also began, almost simultaneously, to teach martial arts informally to fellow students, charging small fees, building a reputation for both the quality of his instruction and the unconventional, questioning nature of his approach to the discipline, the interracial marriage. While studying at the University of Washington, Bruce met Linda Emery, a fellow student of Scandinavian American descent studying to become a teacher. They fell in love. Also did so in a country where interracial marriage was, in many states, illegal. Loving the Chunwanramar, Virginia. The Supreme Court case that struck down all state-level anti-miscegenation laws would not be decided until 1967. Bruce and Linda married into secret in August 1964, ahead of that ruling, in the knowledge that their marriage was illegal under the laws of multiple American states. The marriage was, by all accounts, deeply loving and genuinely partnered. Linda was not merely a supportive spouse but an active participant in the enterprise of Bruce's career, managing correspondence, helping to organize schools, and raising their two children, Brandon, born 1965, and Shannon, born 1969, through years of financial uncertainty and repeated professional setbacks. The Oakland Challenge. In 1964, Bruce Lee was challenged in a way that would prove unexpectedly to be one of the most pivotal encounters of his martial arts life. A group of traditional Chinese Kung Fu practitioners from San Francisco's Kung Fu community arrived at his school in Oakland with a formal challenge. They objected to his teaching of martial arts to non-Chinese students, an activity they regarded as a violation of the traditional ethic of Chinese martial arts secrecy and cultural exclusivity. The terms were stark. If Bruce lost the fight, he would stop teaching non-Chinese. He won, but narrowly, chasing his opponent down and pinning him to the floor when the man tried to run. The fight lasted longer than he believed it should have, and despite the victory, Bruce returned home frustrated and disturbed. He had been unable to finish his opponent in the efficient, economical way his training should have enabled. His Wing Chun techniques had felt too rigid, too choreographed for the chaotic reality of an actual fight with a resisting opponent. This frustration was the direct beginning of Jeet Kune Do. Lee concluded that traditional martial arts, organized around elaborate, stylized forms, rigid stances and techniques developed for a specific context and preserved unchanged for generations, were fundamentally ill-adapted to genuine combat. The traditional arts were beautiful, disciplined, and deeply meaningful culturally, but they had, in his assessment, calcified into ritual, mistaking the preservation of tradition for the pursuit of actual effectiveness. He began to dismantle everything he had learned and rebuild his approach to fighting from first principles, drawing on whatever he found useful from any source: Wing Chun, boxing, fencing, wrestling, judo, discarding whatever he found ineffective, and developing an overall philosophy of combat that was, in his own description, the style of no style, a system explicitly designed to have no fixed form, so that it could adapt to any situation with the same fluid responsiveness that water shows when poured into a container. The philosophy had a name: Jeet Kune Do, the way of the intercepting fist kado, the supporting role that was actually not enough. The 1964 Long Beach demonstration connected Lee with the Hollywood world that had always been his goal, but the entry point it provided was not what he had dreamed of. He was cast as Kato, the sidekick of the Green Hornet, in a television series that ran for a single season in 1966-67. Kato was, on paper, a martial arts expert, but the show's writers and producers had conceived him as a conventional supporting character, and the larger cultural machine of 1960s American television had no framework for an Asian man as anything other than a model minority supporting figure, loyal and capable, but never the center. Bruce made Kato something the writers had not intended. His movements on screen were so blindingly fast that the camera crew had difficulty capturing them coherently, and he was asked to deliberately slow down his techniques so they would read on film, a request that illustrated, with unintentional humor, just how far beyond conventional on-screen action performance his abilities actually lay. In Hong Kong, the show was rebroadcast under a different title, The Kato Show, because in Hong Kong, where viewers had no cultural investment in the Green Hornet as the hero, Kato was clearly the more compelling character, and the show's title was changed accordingly to reflect commercial reality. In America, Bruce remained the sidekick. The lesson was not lost on him. Chapter 4. First success. Building a school, building a philosophy. While pursuing his acting career with limited success through the mid-1960s, Bruce built 3 martial arts schools in Seattle, Oakland, and Los Angeles, and established himself as the most innovative and demanding instructor in the American martial arts world. His student list in Los Angeles included some of the most prominent names in Hollywood: Steve McQueen, James Coburn, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Sharon Tate, James Garner, screenwriter Sterling Siliphant. These were not casual students pursuing a fitness class. They were people who had encountered Bruce Lee and understood that what he offered was categorically different from anything available elsewhere. His classes were not about forms. They were not about tradition. They were about developing a genuinely functional fighting capability through honest, tested, direct physical training, and about understanding, at a philosophical level, why you were doing what you were doing rather than simply performing inherited movements because a system prescribed them. The philosophy he taught to Hollywood celebrities through the late 1960s was simultaneously developing on a conceptual level, fed by his ongoing reading in philosophy and his own experience as a practitioner trying to understand why some techniques worked and others did not. He kept exhaustive notes, filled journals, and developed the framework that would eventually be published posthumously as Tao of Jeet Kune Do, one of the few books by a martial artist that genuinely deserves to be called a work of philosophy, rather than simply an instruction manual. The Long Beach moment. We have already seen the impact of the 1964 Long Beach demonstration in this biography's opening hook. It deserves to be understood in the context of the trajectory it launched. That single, stunning exhibition introduced Bruce Lee to the American public as something genuinely unprecedented. Not a traditional martial arts performer, not a showman doing tricks, but a man whose physical capability appeared to exceed the usual categories that American audiences had for understanding what a human body could do. The demonstration attracted not just television producers, but the sustained attention of the martial arts world at large, establishing Lee's reputation as a practitioner of unusual depth and revolutionary thinking at precisely the moment he was also beginning to articulate the philosophical framework of Jeet Kune Do. Hollywood gives him a window, then closes it. After the Green Hornet's cancellation, Bruce spent several years in the frustrating half-light of Hollywood's supporting cast. Recurring television appearances, small film roles, private lessons to stars who respected him personally, but whose industry's gatekeepers could not accommodate him in the lead roles his talent warranted. He appeared in episodes of Longstreet, for which he also contributed writing and fight choreography, Ironside, and the film Marlowe, in which his brief scene destroying an entire office through a kung fu attack drew more attention than anything else in the movie. And then came the moment of his deepest professional humiliation in America, not because it was a failure, but because it was a theft. Bruce had developed, with writer Sterling Siliphant, and actor James Coburn. A concept for a kung fu-centered television series originally called The Warrior, built around a Chinese martial artist navigating America's frontier west, precisely the kind of vehicle that would allow Bruce to bring martial arts philosophy to a mainstream American audience. In the lead role he had been working toward, the concept was taken by Warner Bros. And developed into the series Kung Fu, which aired beginning in 1972 to considerable success and critical acclaim. The lead role, a Shaolin monk wandering the American West, was played by David Carradine, a white American actor. Carradine, who had no martial arts background. Bruce Lee had been rejected for a role conceived around his own idea because studio executives reportedly reasoned an Asian man could not carry an American television drama. He looked too Chinese, a phrase that has been cited in multiple accounts, and that captures, with precise and damning efficiency, the exact logic of the racial gatekeeping he had been navigating his entire American career. Chapter 5. Major failure. The back injury. When body betrayed the machine in early 1970, Bruce Lee was working out in his Los Angeles training space, performing a good morning exercise with an 80-pound barbell, a routine he had included in his physical conditioning regimen without properly warming up. Something gave way in his sacral nerve. He was suddenly, dramatically incapacitated, a back injury so severe, doctors initially told him he might never fully recover, and that he would certainly never be able to practice martial arts again. For a man whose entire identity, income, philosophy, and life's work were organized around his physical core capabilities, this was not merely a professional setback. It was a crisis that struck at the most fundamental level of his sense of self. He was bedridden for 6 months. Doctors prescribed strict rest and strongly advised him against any physical exertion. Bruce, characteristically, refused to accept the prognosis as final. He used the enforced immobility, the one thing he was instructed to do, rest, as an opportunity to write. He produced the foundational material for Tao of Dao. Jeet Kune Do during these months of physical limitation, channeling the physical energy that his body could not express into the philosophical articulation of everything he had been practicing and thinking about for the previous decade. He also, slowly and against medical advice, began rehabilitating himself, developing his own program of gradual physical recovery, returning first to light movement, and then, steadily, over many months, to full capability. He recovered more completely than his doctors had suggested was possible, though the injury would continue to create physical complications, requiring pain management throughout the remainder of his life. The period of enforced inactivity produced something important. It's something important separated what Bruce Lee knew and thought and believed from the physical body that expressed it, forcing him to encounter his own philosophy in a form that existed independent of the physical performance. The Tao of Jeet Kune Do that emerged from those bedridden months is not a sports science text. It is a philosophical document about freedom, self-knowledge, and the discipline required to shed inherited form in pursuit of genuine truth. Hollywood's final rejection. The Kung Fu casting decision, the theft and racial recasting of his own concept, represented the culmination of years of smaller rejections and the definitive, undeniable proof that the Hollywood of the early 1970s was not going to give him what he needed. Industry's racial imagination was simply too limited. It could accommodate an Asian man as sidekick, as colorful supporting character, as convenient martial arts expert in someone else's story. It could not, by the reasoning of the people who controlled it, accommodate an Asian man as the center of a narrative that white American audiences would purchase tickets to watch. Bruce made his decision. If Hollywood would not give him the lead, he would build the film industry that would. He flew to Hong Kong. Thank you for listening to part 1 of our Bruce Lee biography audiobook. In this chapter, we've witnessed the foundations of an incredible life. A young man driven by determination, discipline, and an unbreakable spirit. But Bruce Lee's greatest challenges and achievements are still ahead. Be sure to join us for part 2, where we'll explore his rise to global fame, his revolutionary philosophy, and the lasting legacy that continues to inspire millions around the world. If you enjoyed this audiobook, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more biographies and audiobooks from Blurr. And most importantly, tell us in the comments, what is your favorite Bruce Lee quote or lesson? See you in part 2.